But as far as the opposition is concerned, yes, they have been demanding a discussion on the floor of the House on China, and the government has not been forthcoming or accepting of that demand. What was the point of a walkout, though? And that happened today. I'm asking that question to Union Minister and former Foreign Affairs Minister Salman Khurshid. You do know that he served as the External Affairs Minister in the UPA government. He's dealt extensively with China, both inside and outside Parliament. So let me put my first question to him. Salman Khurshid, always good to have you on the show. Thank you very much for joining us here on Mirror Now. Do you think what happened in Parliament was appropriate? I know questions were asked about China, but the opposition decided to stage a walkout. Given how much the Congress party has been pushing for some sort of debate on China, why this walkout? Simply stay there and keep demanding that discussion instead of this walkout.
Well, listen, a walkout is an indication of sort of running out of all persuasive options. If the government is willing or were willing to have a debate, or if just indicated that they needed some time, I'm sure the reaction would have been different. But this is just stalling indefinitely, and then saying, well, now this has become infructuous. Now we move forward, and so on and so forth. So it's a difficult choice. It's a difficult choice for walking out. But you know, if you're not getting a hearing, if you're not getting a response, what else can anyone do?
You're saying you're not getting a response from the government. Why do you think you're not getting a response from the government? There is one set of argument that says that you simply cannot have a debate on something as sensitive as national security, especially the situation that is brewing at the LAC. After all, Parliament is a public platform, and there are sensitive things that cannot be discussed in an open platform.
That's hilarious. I mean, they always demanded discussions when we were in government. On the slightest of problems, they would ask for a discussion. But I understand there are sensitivities involved, and it restricts possibly the freedom a government has to negotiate or to deal with a difficult neighbor. I can understand that, and there is, as there is in any other system, there are confidentialities that have to be maintained, and I'm sure the opposition will cooperate. The opposition is conscious of the needs of the hour, and we would be, clearly we would be very cooperative, but there are many things that can be told. If you don't have a discussion at all, then nothing is told, and it leaves a lot to speculation and just picking up things from the newspapers and channels, etc. So I'm afraid that big answer, the big question as to why they are unable to tell us something or unable to have a discussion, it just leaves us completely dumbfounded. I think the only thing one can imagine is that there is something to hide. There is something that they don't want to admit. Now, if there is something that has happened which is adverse to India, India must know. India must know. We must know if our country has been failed somewhere by a government that has not admitted to having failed. I mean, it's applauding itself for its performances.
Okay, so you're not being allowed to ask questions on the floor of the House. Let me ask you that question here on Mirror Now. Then, what are the three big questions that the Congress party and the opposition want to ask the government on China?
Well, clearly, what is the state of our relations with China? Forget about the incidents that are happening at the line of control or the border, but what is the nature of our relationship, current relationship with China? I think that needs to be known. You know, on the surface, our trade with China is going up at an incredible pace. Of course, the problem of deficit remains. The deficit is very huge, and it's not good for our economy, but that's another matter. What is our relationship with China? Is China giving us the concern and respect that we deserved as an equal neighbor? That is a big question. Then we could, of course, go on to, if that's the answer, and that if we have a good relationship, why are these things happening? Are these aberrations? Are these deliberate? Are these planned? Are these towards a far-fetched plan about dealing with India and showing India its place? If that's the thing that China has in mind, then frankly, that's a very worrisome thing, and we need to know. And this can't be just done by a few remarks made by a few politicians and a few soldiers. This is then a very deep-seated problem that we have to deal with for keeping the future in mind. That's the second thing. And third is, what kind of assets have you put in action, but have you put in process to try and resolve this problem? Every time there is a diplomatic standoff with any country, there are elements of that standoff that you can very easily share with your country and your people. Here, nothing is being shared at all. And if you take the Prime Minister's statements, then there is no problem with China, frankly. We should be celebrating our relationship with China, but that's not the case.
But Mr. Khurshid, isn't it a bit unfair for Rahul Gandhi to say that here is China preparing for war and the Indian government is either sleeping on it or deliberately ignoring it? Surely even the government's worst critics will not believe that.
Well, I don't know. Well, he is the government's worst critic, and he believes it. Let's be very clear. If the government thinks that this is not a situation that's pointing to preparations for war, and please see war in a general sense, not war in the specific sense of a direct combat with China. We know that in the present day and age, war can be of different kinds, etc. If there is a sense and a faith and belief that this is not what China is doing, why don't they say so? It's not been said once by the government that Mr. Gandhi is talking about something that doesn't exist. They've not once said so, because I think they're not confident that if they were to say something like that, that he wouldn't promptly find fault with what they've said and the basis on which they've said it. So frankly, the onus lies on them. Let them speak the truth, and if the truth is bitter, so be it.
Mr. Khurshid, there is one school of thought, and I adhere to that school of thought, just by the way, that when it comes to national security, one needs to forget political differences and simply back the government, especially on issues as sensitive as China. Don't publicly, within the country, fight a war over it. What is your view on that?
No. My view is pretty clear, and I'm quite sure that my party doesn't disagree with me on this. That is, if we come to the bottom line of India's interests being at stake, vis-a-vis anybody in the world, we will stand by the government. We will stand by the government. There cannot be any question whatsoever of letting the government down. We won't. But then there are some responsibilities that the government owes to us as well. Let the government share it. They don't want to share it with the big wide world. They can share it with a few. They can share it with a limited number of opposition leaders. Call them to a quiet, closed room conference and tell them that this is our difficulty. This is our plan. We cannot disclose this plan publicly because that would constrain and restrict our ability to operate successfully. And the government will get the support that it needs. You can't take the opposition for granted. The opposition knows its responsibility. It will stand by the government because at the end of the day, there is nothing more important. But there is a responsibility that the government owes to the people, and certainly to those who represent the people.
The government cannot take the opposition for granted. That's what Mr. Khurshid is telling us here on Mirror Now. Sir, thank you very much for your time here on the show. I'm slipping into a quick break on the show with that, but there's much more news coming up on the other side. Do stay with us.